Welcome to the Witchy Work Wishes podcast, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. Welcome to Witchy Work Wishes. Here we are in the middle of July and on episode number 143. Today we are talking about our rooted magic and the energy of trees. Why today, you ask? Well, my annual mountain retreat, annual family gathering, sanctuary wellness pause is coming up. And I have been thinking a lot about the trees that I am coming home to, the trees that greet me year after year. You know my philosophy by now. If I need an episode like this, maybe you do too. But for some things I have been up to in my little corner of the world and with Witchy Work Wishes. First and foremost, Hearth and Hen will soon have 3 new little ones to round out our family of chickens. Of course, I called my mom right away immediately after the purchase and asked her to dig back into our long list of family names so we keep the same theme as the 2 frizzled ones that are already home. 3 were purchased, and I have 1 that is an all-white silky, and then 2 that are... It's called mauve silky. It's like a tan mauve-y color. Mauve. They're tannish. All 3 are super little, so I can't pick them up yet. But in a couple of weeks, I am heading down to get them in person. I did go back to Buckaboo Farms for the purchase, and oh my goodness, you guys, I'm so excited. Okay, so the names. The white one will be Phoebe, short for Euphemia, and that is going back 12 generations for a great-grandmother. And then the 2 mauve silkies will be Babs, short for Barbara, which goes back 10 generations, and Blanche. Blanche goes back 8 generations. Oh my goodness. So I will post updates on the Hearth and Hen blog, and I'm so sorry I've been so delayed on doing those blog updates. But the little brooder will be set up again, and then once they are big and strong enough, they will go out to the hen house and start transitioning with Izzy and Maggie. And that's it. That will be my 5, or 5. We have 1 for each of the moon phases. Miss Izzy is the new moon hen that you guys already know, and Miss Maggie, she is our dark moon hen that you already know. But we needed the 3 in the middle. We needed the waxing, full, and waning to be represented too. So Babs will be my waxing moon hen, and Blanche will be my waning moon hen. And then Phoebe, the all white fluffy one, is going to be my full moon girl. That's it. The hen house is about to be complete, and I could not be happier. Okay, let's see. Last week I mentioned a full circle moment. And while it is still a little raw, I will tell you the hard work I have been doing this past week and still doing this week as this airs, and just what's going on. Well, maybe not like all the details, but how about at least what prompted the work? There is a certain heaviness that just creeps in when we do not tend to our emotions. It doesn't always arrive as a storm. I think sometimes it comes quietly in the form of exhaustion, apathy, frustration, or the feeling that something is just off. We carry it on our shoulders, in our hips, behind our eyes. We call it stress or burnout or, that weight of being just too busy. But often it's not about time or tasks. It's about what we have not allowed ourselves to feel. And sometimes life just happens. I'm sure you have gone through this. It is just one event after another. Over and over again, you just keep getting thrown down. And right when you get back up, you get slapped down all over again. And that, my friends, I think is where the magic of emotional work begins. This isn't the shiny Instagram-friendly kind of magic. It's the gritty kind. The candlelit journal sessions where tears fall between the pages. The long walks with your heart cracked open. The honest mirror work where your reflection doesn't flinch and neither do you. This is shadow work, the process of turning inward and gently courageously facing the parts of ourselves that we've pushed away. It's not about fixing something broken. It is about welcoming home the pieces that we've exiled. Fear, anger, grief, shame, regret, unspoken dreams, unmet needs. We do this not to indulge pain, but to liberate it. We do it not to dwell in the darkness, but to make space for authentic light. Because I think when we suppress what we feel, we don't get rid of it. We bury it. And buried things do not die. They frickin' grow roots, don't they? They wrap around our thoughts, our habits, our relationships until we're not even sure why we feel stuck or sad or disconnected. But when we give those feelings room to breathe, we name them, we hold them, and we ask, oh my gosh, what do you need from me? Right? Something incredible happens. The weight begins to lift. It doesn't happen all at once. Shadow work is not a dramatic unveiling. It's a slow, brave peeling away of old layers. But one day, you'll notice, you're just not reacting the same way you used to. You're breathing deeper. You're walking lighter. You're saying yes to things that once maybe terrified you, and no to things that used to drain you. You are no longer apologizing for your emotions because you've finally realized they're not the problem. They're the portal. You've done the work. You've felt the pain, and now you are free. Not perfect, not polished, but you are free. Emotional work is sacred work. It is spell work. It is healing, and it is unbinding. You can make it a ritual, candles, cards, sacred herbs, or you can just make it real by telling the truth to yourself, by crying in your coffee, or by, finally saying what you've needed to say for years. Whatever form it takes, it is bravery in action. And on the other side of it is space. Space for joy and peace and for possibility. For breath that you didn't know you were even holding. For magic that you didn't know you were missing. Now, for me, it started out with the pain of one thing after another. After another. After another. You guys know I don't need to rehash the past couple of months. But last weekend, something happened. I don't know what it was, who it was, or how it did what it did. But I was outside, gardening, tending to the hearth and hen space to be. I was literally mid-step, midday, and something stopped me. Physically stopped me, and physically gave me a teaser of what it would feel like to process everything that has not only recently happened, but a lifetime of suppressed emotions around my father. Whatever this was, a spirit, a deity, one of my ancestors, a guide, I don't know, a familiar that has passed. I don't know. Well, I have an idea. I have a good idea. Whatever it was, it stopped me in my tracks and hovered above me and physically pulled the weight off my shoulders just for seconds. I felt it. I felt free. But then it placed the weight back on my shoulders. It gave me back the work that I still needed to do. And I felt heavy again. But those seconds, you guys, that quick, fleeting moment of that energy and weight being taken off of my shoulders, oh my goodness, it was such a rush. Like, it felt so good. And I wanted more of that feeling. I instantly knew I had to do the work. All right, for this next part of the story, there's going to be a little bit of anger. There's some alchemy. And then we need to talk about the full moon happening this week because it all comes together. When I first heard the news, I didn't cry. I literally stared at the text message, read it twice, and let the words settle in, that hollow space behind your ribs. The space I had built over years of distance, silence, and holding things in. My father's wife texted my brother and I that his funeral was scheduled on my birthday, on the full moon of July 10th. the day after this episode comes out, it is both my birthday and my father's funeral. Now, normally, this is a night thick with magic and memory, a date I usually reserve for like self-reflection, ritual baths, cupcake with a candle maybe, a card pull for the year ahead, something. It is when I do a big closed circle ritual. But this year, instead of celebrating, I was being handed an emotional bombshell wrapped in strained timing and poor consideration. Honestly, guys, I wasn't even surprised, but I was mad. Not the kind of anger that rages loudly, although I had a couple moments, but the kind that just like simmers, the kind that presses into your lungs and makes it hard to breathe. The kind that whispers, of course she did. Of course it happened like this. Because my relationship with my father has always been complicated, distant, formal, sometimes painfully transactional. There was never a soft place to land with him, no emotional safety net, no tender, hey, I'm proud of you moments, no effortless love. We had reconnected briefly in my early adulthood, but it faded as quickly as it came. Businesslike, cold, unfinished. My father never chose my brother and I. He never really chose his family at all. Not on an emotional level, at least. I knew exactly where I stood with him. So after a while, I stopped trying. We had, lunches every now and then. We had phone calls to catch up every 6 months or so. But I knew my place. He made it very clear. So when he passed, I wasn't met with overwhelming grief. Yes, I was sad. Yes, it is a loss. But I was met with a complex swirl of emotions, numbness, confusion, exhaustion, a bunch of things. And for the funeral, it just felt like a final insult from his wife, who I'm sure you can guess at this point my brother and I are not fond of. It was just a last act of distance honored by her. A reminder that I was never really seen, not in life and not in death. I felt robbed of my birthday, of my peace, of a chance to process in a way that made sense to me. But then something shifted. If the funeral was going to fall on my birthday, which this year of all years has a huge full buck moon on it, well, then I was going to make it mean something. I was going to let that anger rise and then alchemize it. I was going to do whatever he could not, hold space for my emotions. And the final push to have, this space and do the work came from that moment in my yard when the weight got lifted. I wanted that feeling back. I wanted to find the place of peace and resolution of 56 years coming to an end so that I could rise stronger, lighter, and resolved. So this past weekend, I worked. I lit a black candle for grief. I lit a white candle for clarity. I didn't have to pull cards. I'll be honest, the frog spirit is so front and center for me right now. That episode is just lingering in my thoughts. I wrote pages of things I never said out loud. I let myself cry, not only for his loss, but for what we never had. I whispered truths that, I'd buried just to keep the peace. I forgave myself for not being the daughter that maybe he wanted, and I forgave him for being so distant, so cold, so businesslike. And slowly, through the tears and breath and moonlight, the weight began to lift. I honored the amazing gifts he did give me, my drive for business probably being the strongest one. So this year, this July 10th, it is the beginning of a new kind of birthday. I no longer think of what was taken. I think of what I took back. I took back my voice. I took back my right to feel. I took back my birthday. And I'm claiming the full moon, not as a time of mourning, but as a portal for healing. This is a turning point where I get to step out of emotional limbo and choose to start again. I know this isn't a great fairy tale story that I'm sharing here. It is not all tied up with a bow. Then, there are still layers to peel back, still echoes of hurt that show up when I least expect them. But I've made peace with the mess. I've learned that anger is not the opposite of healing. It is part of it. The full moon is giving me a container big enough to hold all of it. The sadness, the betrayal, the longing, the strength. And I think that it happened on the 10th for a reason. This year I'm not just older, I'm lighter, I'm clearer, I'm free. So what happened in my backyard? Who came to me during all of this transition, during all of this grief and pain? I had that physical pause in my body, full stop, mid-step, mid-day, and then an unseen presence just hovering above me, and a moment of weight physically being lifted off my body, only to be gently placed back. I got that rush of like freedom, followed by the knowing you must still do the work feeling. I was outdoors, gardening, working on our magical hearth and hen space, which is in fact a nurturing act right on my own personal land. And that feeling, the pain that was just lifted for a moment, it was just deeply, deeply tied to ancestral grief and that father wound. You guys, I don't think it was spiritual encouragement. This felt like a divine initiation moment. My thoughts? Hecate, right? The guardian of thresholds. She is the torchbearer of shadow work, the one who appears at the crossroads. Hecate does not take the burden away, but she does show you how to carry it with power. She's often felt during moments of emotional death and rebirth, especially tied to ancestral pain, the underworld, and those sacred feminine mystery moments. I know she works with witches and land and homekeeping magic, so hearth and hen, I think that's her language. I was right there. I also think she stops us in our tracks, physically, spiritually, emotionally. If this was in fact Hecate, I think she gave me that breath of lightness to illuminate my own strength, not to carry it for me, but to remind me that it's time. I am ready. And here is how freaking good you will feel if you do the work. But here it is back. Please do the work. This full moon is a buck moon. I don't know if you guys remember, but Hecate came to me in a dream last November, and it was so vivid, so powerful. Like it woke me right up, and I was saying her name over and over and over again. It was the most powerful dream of her, but the dream was of a buck, a huge, racked, beautifully strong, wise buck in a forest. Maybe, I don't know, she knew back then what was going to be happening on this buck full moon, and that my father was dying, and all of this would come full circle. Maybe, I don't know, she knew back then that she would be visiting me in July, this July, right now, to help guide me. Maybe. Either way, I know that I am deep in the workings of something very magical that is closing one door and opening another. How amazing. How lucky am I that everything I need to do got wrapped up in and on one very special calendar day. My day. All right. Some of this final closure is, in fact, going to happen up in the mountains next month. My mountains, my family's mountains. We have been going to this spot for 4 generations now, and I get to include my boys in that sacred lineage. That is 4 generations of us breathing in the thin mountain air, talking to the trees, skipping stones in the stream, feeling the medicine in the wind and the water. This place is not a vacation spot. It really is a sanctuary, a living altar where we've cried and healed and laughed and remembered who we are. This is my Othala place. This is my family place. This is where we all come to just be, to stop striving, to listen, to let the earth hold what we can't carry on our own. And this year, my brother and I will say goodbye to our father. Not in a chapel, not with a eulogy, but out in the wild where he belongs, in a place that shaped us both long before grief and obligation tried to wedge themselves between us. This goodbye will be quiet, no audience, just family. Just pine needles, birdsong, and two siblings standing in truth, honoring a man whose love we didn't always understand, but whose story still runs in our blood, who taught us so much about work and business, who taught us many things. We will lay him to rest among the water and the trees. And why the trees? Because they know, they remember, they've seen us grow up and grow older. They've heard our laughter and our silence. They don't ask us to be okay. They just stand, rooted, watching, holding space. And that, my friends, is what brings us to the heart of today's episode, the magic of the trees. These wise beings aren't just beautiful parts of nature. They are the spirit keepers, the energy holders, and emotional anchors for all of us. They are spell partners, sacred witnesses, and patient teachers. So let's jump right into it, shall we? Grab a cup of coffee or something magically brewed just for you, and join me. Let's step into the forest together, not just to learn about tree magic, but to remember that we are a part of the forest, and the forest is a part of us. When we return to nature, we return to ourselves. As witches, mystics, and seekers, our practice doesn't begin on an altar carved from stone or a candle-lit table. It begins with the earth, the moss-covered ground beneath our bare feet, the whisper of the wind through ancient branches, the rhythm of the moonlight filtering through the trees. Nature really was our first teacher, and I think it remains our most faithful one. We must never forget that the oldest altar is the earth itself. Long before we lit incense or, flipped through our grimoires, our ancestors knelt in the soil, drew circles in the dirt, and made offerings beneath the canopy of stars. The elements weren't metaphors, they were companions. Fire for transformation, water for intuition, air for inspiration, and earth for grounding. Each one alive, speaking in a language beyond words. And within this sacred, natural tapestry, it is the trees that stand as sentinels of memory and magic. Trees are more than wood and leaf. They really are ancient guides rooted in both the underworld and the heavens. Their roots drink from deep, hidden places. Their branches reach towards the stars. They teach us the truth of duality, that we too can hold light and shadow, stillness and growth, the above and the below. When we lean against a tree, we aren't just resting, we are recalibrating. Trees absorb what we carry, the static noise, the ache in our hearts, the tension in our bodies, and offer us back a steadiness, a silence that just heals. They remind us that slow growth is still growth, and that there is power in being deeply, deeply rooted before reaching upward. Nature, in all of her beauty, has a way of revealing what is misaligned within us. A simple walk through the woods can loosen the tight cords of anxiety. The sound of birds singing can soften the harsh inner critic. The act of gathering fallen leaves or listening to a babbling creek can reawaken our wonder. This is not coincidence. This is communication. We don't need elaborate tools or rare herbs to practice magic. We do need to remember that our magic is already humming in the wind, blossoming in the wildflowers, and spiraling in a pattern of a snail shell. Nature is always inviting us back to stillness, back to presence, back to belonging. Our personal magic is not separate from the world around us. It really is inspired by it. It's fueled by it, sharpened and softened in equal measure by these cycles of nature itself. When we are lost, the earth offers a path. When we are heavy, she offers a release. When we are ready, she gives us that spark. So let us return again and again to the woods, to the wilds, to the wind-swept ridgelines. Let us remember that we do not walk this path alone, that every branch, every breeze, every stone is a part of the spell. Because nature is not just where we practice magic. Nature is the magic, and it has always been ours. Trees are deeply, deeply tied to a witch's magic because they really do embody everything we hold sacred. Rootedness, cycles, transformation, and a deep connection to both the seen and the unseen worlds. All right, let's talk about it real fast. Why are trees so intimately woven into our crafts? First, they really are those living portals between the worlds, right? Trees exist in 3 realms all at once. Their roots reach into the underworld, the realm of our ancestors, memory, and the deep subconscious. Their trunks anchor them in the physical present world, the realm of stability and grounded power. Their branches stretch into the sky, connecting with spirit, air, inspiration, and the divine. This triple realm connection mirrors, I think, many witchcraft frames. Think of the Norse Yggdrasil tree, think of the Celtic tree of life, making trees natural symbols of the axis mundi, or the world center or cosmic axis. They help us journey between realms. Trees also embody the power of the cycles, right? And we work in cycles, moon phases, seasons, life and death, waxing and waning. Trees live these cycles openly. In spring, they bud and awaken. In summer, they bloom and bear fruit. In autumn, they shed what no longer serves. In winter, they rest, gathering strength in stillness. This yearly rhythm teaches us how to honor our own seasons of growth, release, and rest, reminding us that, stillness is not failure, and blooming always, always returns. Trees are also the teachers of magic without words. Every tree carries a presence. When we spend time in their company, we begin to feel their energy. Oak whispers strength. A willow tree teaches surrender. Pine trees encourage resilience. Birch, they offer that fresh beginning feeling. They offer a silent wisdom, perfect for us who work with intuition, for, working with spirit communication, those natural omens. You don't need to have a formal spell to learn from a tree. Simply sitting beneath one really can shift your whole energetic field. Trees are also Earth's ancient record keepers. They are the elders. Some have lived for hundreds, even thousands of years. They have witnessed the storms, sunlight, rituals, and revolutions. Their rings record the passage of time. Their leaves whisper history. So in our craft, we often seek out sacred trees as our spirit allies, believing that they hold ancestral knowledge and energetic memory. When we connect with them, we tap into something older than ourselves, a lineage of magic that doesn't require language to be passed on. Trees also, they offer their bodies to our craft. Trees give us wands and staves for channeling energy. They give us herbal medicines from bark, their leaves, their fruit, and their resin. They give us incense and smoke for cleansing. They give us tools and charms from branches, acorns, and blossoms. And they give us altars and sacred spaces beneath their canopies. They are generous spirits, always giving, always offering, and we, in turn, honor that reciprocity by working with them respectfully, ethically, and magically. Trees are also in the heartwood of our craft. I think in many ways, trees are witches, right, in their own right. They stand still, observe deeply, live in rhythm with nature, and draw power from both the earth and the sky. When we work with trees, we remember that magic isn't always fast or loud. Sometimes it's silent, it's rooted, it's ancient. I think that's why we return to the forest. That's why our hands reach for the bark. That's why we plant trees in honor of spells. We sit beneath them when we grieve, and we tie ribbons to their branches with whispered prayers. Because the magic we share with trees, it really isn't symbolic, or it isn't just symbolic. It's like soul deep. It's ancestral. It's ours. All right, before I talk about the types of trees, or some of them, I want to talk about working with one that just really, really calls to you. Like, how does a witch choose a tree? I would first start with presence, not purpose. Like, before thinking, hey, I need an oak for strength or a willow for grief, let yourself simply just kind of wander. Go to a forest, a park, your backyard, or a grove without expectation. Let your energy soften and your awareness expand. Walk slowly, breathe, observe. Like you are not choosing a tool. It's more like you are meeting a spirit. Second, let the tree choose you. You are going to know. It might be a subtle pull. It might be a sudden stillness. It might be a tingle in your body when you pass a certain tree. You might feel a draw to sit at its base, or, I don't know, you just kind of catch yourself circling back to it. Maybe you dream of it before you even meet it. This is how a tree says, hey, I see you too. Third is just to spend some time in relationship. Like any magical ally, a tree deserves your respect. So before asking anything of it, offer your attention. Sit or stand with your back to its trunk. Place your hands gently on its bark. Breathe with it. Match its stillness. And then ask silently, or out loud, right? Are you open to working with me? You may receive a yes in the form of a warm breeze or a sudden bird call, or just that knowing. If you feel resistance or unease, thank the tree and move on. No harm, no foul. Consent matters even in nature. Fourth, I would learn its name and its lore. Once a tree welcomes you, learn about its species. What are its magical properties? What myths surround it? What season does it bloom or shed in? What deities are tied to it? This research is, part of your offering. You're not just like working with a tree. You are working with this tree and learning its story honors that bond. And fifth, I would make offerings. Like leave something as a thank you. A strand of your hair, spring water or moon water, a poem or a prayer, a small charm made from natural materials, or just your full-hearted presence. Offerings keep the relationship reciprocal. You give as you receive. Six, I would say listen for the work it wants to do. Like not all trees want to be spell-casting partners. Some may hold space. Some may teach through silence. Some may offer branches for wands or leaves for tea. Others, they're just going to, simply want to witness your magic unfold nearby. I would say let the purpose of your connection evolve organically. A witch and a tree are collaborators, not master and tool. And lastly, I would say just, visit often, especially in all seasons. Trees teach us about the long arc of time. If you can, return regularly in the sun, in the rain, in the fall, in the frost. Bring your griefs, your ideas, bring your questions, and then track how the energy of the tree just changes and how it reflects something in you. Working with a tree isn't a one-time spell. It is a sacred friendship that grows like roots, slowly, steadily, and deeply. Now, when you hear people say, working with a tree, what does it really mean? I just think it's letting a piece of the earth be a teacher, a mirror, a magical partner. It's not about control or use. It's more about connection. And the right tree for you? Well, it's the one you can't stop thinking about. The one you feel in your chest. The one that reminds you that you too belong. All right, let's talk about some trees. And there's no way to cover them all. I think in the whole world, we have something like 60,000 or 70,000 tree types or species. But that said, only a small fraction of trees are commonly worked with in magical traditions. Often I think it's more because of geographic location, cultural lore, or maybe just their symbolic resonance. But every tree, no matter how obscure, carries a unique spirit and magical potential. All right, I'm going to pull like the top 20, or I think they're the top 20, but please know there are so many options. So if I don't grab one that really resonates with you, I do encourage you to just look it up and start creating your own magic with it. All right, first and foremost, it has to be the oak, right? It has to be the oak tree. Its magic is strength, protection, wisdom, and stability. Often seen as the king of the forest, it is sacred to many deities, and it is used in grounding and ancestral rites. Second one is going to be the willow tree. The willow is about intuition, emotions, moon magic, and grief work. Deeply feminine and lunar, the willow is excellent for like emotional healing and shadow work. Oh, we've got the ash tree. This tree is about protection, communication with spirits, and transformation. It is like the Axis Mundi, the world tree. We're going to see it in the Norse myths for sure. It's really bridging the worlds. Birch. The birch tree is about new beginnings, cleansing, rebirth. It is often used during Imbolc celebrations, those spring rituals. Really good for purification. Rowan. This tree is all about protection and psychic power and divination. Traditional tree of the wise woman, I think, right? The berries are often also used in talismans. The hawthorn tree. This tree is about love, fertility, the fae, and those liminal spaces. It really is sacred to the fairies, so I do believe like this is one we never, ever cut without permission. Oh, we've got the elder tree. This one is about death and rebirth, protection and wisdom. The elder tree is strongly tied to the crone energy and, the underworld. Elderberries are, I'm sure, something you've worked with before. They are potent. Just remember, though, that not all parts are edible. Let's see, we've got the yew. This is our ancestral tree. It's full of immortality and spirit work. Often found in graveyards. This is sacred to Hecate, and it is associated with deep shadow work. The hazel tree, this one is about like wisdom, creativity, divination. It is a source of inspiration and poetic insight, right? Hazelnuts are used in a bunch of spells. We've got the holly tree. Holly tree is about protection. It's like our winter magic. It's very masculine energy. Paired with the oak in the seasonal battle of light and dark. We know that story. We just talked about it a couple episodes ago. We've got the pine tree. This is a tree that is about cleansing, longevity, and resilience. We burn pine as incense. Can be used in water for clearing rituals too. We have the apple tree. Apple tree is about love and fertility. It's about knowledge and the other world. I know many of us slice apples crosswise to reveal the pentagram, that symbol of magical truth. We also have the maple tree. Maples are about like abundance, love, and balance. Sweet energy, really. Maple syrup can be used in kitchen witchcraft. Cedar trees, these are our purification trees, our protection trees, and that sacred space. Cedar is burned in rituals for cleansing and boundary setting. Juniper, this tree is about protection, banishing, a little bit of spirit work maybe. It is used to ward off evil, and juniper can call in protective spirits. We have the alder tree. This tree is about strength in transitions, bridges, like elements of water maybe. I do believe it is linked to fairy realms and water spirits, so it's really going to be good for emotional courage. We have cherry trees. Cherry trees are about love and desire and femininity. Blossoms are used in beauty magic and attraction magic. Our walnut trees are going to focus on manifestation, clarity, and like our mental powers. Walnut trees are heavily associated with witches' gatherings in Italian folklore. We have the elm tree. The elm is our stability, grounding, and tree for communication with the dead. It is heavily rooted energy for necromancy and spirit guides. We also have cypress. This is a tree that is known for grief, transition, and death magic. I think it is used in sacred mourning rituals and used for like spiritual release. And we also have redwoods. Redwoods are highly tied to longevity, like that timeless wisdom, perspective, strength, spiritual elevation, and just sacred space. Grounding charms are used with redwoods, that help anchor us in our shadow work. And they're used as a wisdom talisman for, insight from your ancestors or your future self. Now, we would be here for hours if I talked about each one of the many, many trees. Certainly if I talked about each one of the 21 that I just mentioned. So how about, you guys just want to do the top 5? Let's just do the top 5. And then if one of those really resonates with you, or again, if there's one I didn't mention, just take the time and do the research to figure out your path with it. All right, first and foremost, the oak tree. Let's go back to our beginning tree. Our strength, protection, wisdom, and stability tree. In the heart of the forest stands the oak, strong and unshaken, towering, patient, and ancient. The oak is more than just a tree. It really, really is a presence. In many magical traditions, it is revered as the king of the forest, and it's for good reason. With its wide-reaching branches and deep anchoring roots, the oak embodies the kind of strength that doesn't shout. It just simply is. Oak energy is old soul energy. It speaks in the language of endurance, sovereignty, and sacred stillness. When we work with oak in our magical practice, we are not seeking flashy, really fast results. We are anchoring into deep, deep-rooted power, the kind that holds firm through every storm. So when we think about oaks, we think about strength. They are built to withstand the wind, the drought, time, even fires. Their wood is famously dense and unyielding, and their energetic essence really does mirror that. When you need to tap into your own resilience, the oak tree becomes a perfect ally, holding you up when the world feels heavy. Protection is the next big one for oaks, and folk magic, oak leaves, and acorns, they were worn or placed around the home for shielding. The tree's towering form offers natural protection, both physically and energetically. So spells crafted with oak bark, the oak branches, or imagery of oaks are potent for warding off negativity and spiritual attack, or even fear. Next, we've got wisdom with the oak. The oak trees can live for hundreds of years, and in that time, they become keepers of stories and guardians of thresholds and witnesses of change. They don't rush, they more observe, they adapt. This makes them ideal companions for divination, decision-making, or even accessing ancestral knowledge. And fourth, with the oak trees, I think it's about stability. Oak roots run wide and deep, often spanning more underground than the tree reaches above. For witches who feel unmoored, anxious, or disconnected, well, the oak energy offers grounding, not just physically, but spiritually. It says, hey, you belong here. You are held. Stand tall. Why oak is the king of the forest? Well, because in many European and Celtic traditions, the oak is seen as the ruler of the woodland realm, the king tree, crowned with acorns and cloaked in shade. Its sheer presence commands attention, and animals, birds, fungi, countless other species rely on it for shelter and sustenance. Beyond ecology, though, the oak has long been viewed as a sacred living altar. Druids held their ceremonies in oak groves, believing the trees to be gateways to divine wisdom. The word druid is even thought to come from the Proto-Celtic druid, knower of the oak. Now, as a king, the oak doesn't dominate through force. I think it holds court with dignity, supports those beneath it, and weathers time with grace. It really is the tree of righteous power, a leader, protector, and a wise elder all wrapped up in one tree. Now, the oak tree is beloved by many gods and goddesses across multiple pantheons. Now, working with oak invites us to commune with these powerful deities, especially when we need courage and leadership or grounding in our spiritual sovereignty. Oak is also a time traveler, a bridge to those who came before us. So we can use oak trees in our grounding and ancestral rites. Its roots run like memory through the soil, making it a perfect conduit for ancestral magic. Now, in ritual, standing beneath or even touching an oak tree can help us connect with those in our bloodline and our spiritual lineage. Its energy is steady and non-judgmental, making it a safe space for grief, remembrance, and communion. For grounding, oak is unmatched. Place your hands on its bark. Lean your spine against its trunk, or bury a small stone beneath its canopy and just breathe. Oak pulls you down into your own body, down into the earth, down into the truth of who you are, free from chaos and distraction. To work with oak is to remember that power doesn't need to be loud to be real. It is presence, patience, and purpose. Whether you carry an acorn in your pocket, light a candle beneath its branches, or whisper your fears into its roots, the oak will hold you, because the oak tree doesn't just grow. It remembers, it protects, and it teaches us how to be strong by simply standing in our truth. Okay, the willow tree, our tree of intuition, emotions, moon magic, and grief work. There are trees that stand tall with fire in their limbs, and then there is willow, the quiet, moonlit priestess of the forest. Her branches do not stretch towards the sky in defiance. They bow, they drape, they weep. And in that soft surrender, the willow really does become one of the most powerful allies in our craft. She is a tree of grace and intuition and emotional depth, a living channel between heartache and feeling. For those of us who walk the path of the witch, the willow offers more than just shade and softness. She offers truth, shadow, and a way back to our sacred center. All right, the magic of the willow, I think, is going to be about intuition, emotions, moon work, and grief healing. Willow is ruled by the moon, making her an ideal guide for psychic development, a little divination, and lunar spell work. Sitting beneath her branches is like sitting inside a veil, a sacred space where the mundane falls away and subtle messages rise to the surface. She doesn't shy away from the messiness of feeling, so the willow tree really does help to encourage us to honor the full spectrum of our emotional experience. Not just the joy, but the sorrow, the rage, the ache. She is a witness, not a fixer. And in her presence, we feel seen and softened. Now, the willow tree, her leaves and bark, even the wood, are perfect for spells done under the full moon. She governs cycles, waxing and waning, rise and fall, and helps us align with our own rhythms, especially in matters of fertility, dreams, and feminine power. And then, the grief work, right? Known as the weeping tree, willow holds space for mourning and emotional release. Her branches droop not from despair, but from deep knowing. She teaches us how to feel fully, shed gracefully, and still remain rooted in who we are. Willow carries a deep feminine essence, not Not in the polished surface way we often imagine. I think she embodies the wild woman, the wise one, the bleeding, birthing, dreaming force that flows like water and cannot be caged. Her femininity is ancient, it is sacred, and it is unapologetically fluid. So to sit with Willow is to, return to the womb of the world, a liminal, dreamy place where we can touch our shadows, we can cry without shame and rise again, cleansed and clear. In shadow work, the willow tree is a balm. She doesn't rush to feel better or push away the pain. She simply wraps her green arms around our grief and reminds us that tears are sacred water too. Now, ways we can work with the willow tree are going to be with her leaves and bark, right? They can be used in dream pillows, moon sachets, or even tea, right? White willow bark, used with care, has traditional medicinal pain-relieving properties. The willow tree branches are ideal for crafting feminine wands or ritual circles for emotional healing. We can place a small piece of willow on our altar during new moons or grief rituals to invite softness, surrender, and insight. And we can also write our sorrows, our shadow truths on paper and then bury them beneath a willow tree just to be held and transformed. We can also use the willow tree as a mirror. In the wild mirror of the willow, we can see ourselves, the parts that flow and bend and ache and bloom. She reminds us that vulnerability is not weakness, and that surrender is never giving up, and that healing doesn't always come in firelight. Sometimes it comes in rain. I don't think she's here to harden us. She's here to soften us back into truth. If oak is the king of the forest, then willow is the moonlit priestess. Cloaked in silver, rooted by rivers, her magic is whispered rather than shouted. She doesn't demand attention. She really invites you in. She won't force you to feel. She'll make it safe enough, though, that you can. And in her presence, we can remember that our emotions are not distractions. They are guides. They are spells. They are part of the sacred spiraling path that we walk. Okay, next we've got our ash tree, our protection, communication with spirits, and transformation tree. The ash is the bridge between the worlds and the tree of becoming. It stands not just in the forest, but at the very center of the worlds. Now, in Norse mythology, it is Yggdrasil, the great world tree, whose roots drink from the well of the dead and whose branches hold the stars. But even outside of myth, ash holds this liminal power, the power to stretch and connect and transform. For us, it is the tree of thresholds, protector, communicator, and change maker. And it doesn't shout her magic. She carries it like a current, moving beneath the bark, through the air, between the realms. All right, so for the ash tree, I would pull protection, spirit communication, and transformation for our energy. With protection, the ash wood has long been used for shields and staffs and magical tools in defense. It carries a stabilizing energy, one that wards off harm, energetic drain, and spiritual interference. It doesn't block recklessly, it filters and it clarifies like wind through leaves. With communication and spirits, I believe the ash tree, spans multiple realms. Ash really is a conduit, in trance, in dream work, in necromancy. Ash serves as a telephone line to the other world. Her energy supports spirit journeys, shamanic travel, and divination. When we need to speak with what is beyond, ash kind of clears the channel. And then with transformation, I believe ash teaches the spiral path. It's never a straight line, but it's a sacred unfolding from seed to sapling to tower and back again to root and rot. Ash guides us through the cycles of change. She doesn't rush us. She stretches us. She reminds us that, Transformation is not a flicker. It's a bridge that you build and cross. Ash is the axis mundi. In Norse cosmology, Yggdrasil, the world tree, is an ash. It holds the 9 realms within its limbs. It's gods, giants, humans, spirits, the dead. Its roots drink from the well of Erd, the well of fate and memory. Its trunk is where the Norns carve destinies. Its branches are the paths of gods and ravens. And to work with the ash tree is to step into the center of the web, to become a walker between worlds. So when we sit with the ash, we are sitting with a living bridge. All right, some ways we can work with the ash tree in our practices. Well, I know there's a lot of ash wands and staves, right? They are excellent for spirit journeying, energy work, and casting protective circles. We can burn ash leaves or wood to purify a ritual space before divination or any ancestor communication. We can also place a small piece of ash bark on our altar when doing transformation work, especially when releasing old identities and crossing into a new phase. We can also work with the ash tree for some ancestry type work. Write a question for your ancestors or your spirit guides, and then place it at the base of an ash tree, or even meditate with the imagery of Yggdrasil as a gateway. Ash is especially powerful during equinoxes, liminal moon phases like the dark moon, and the turning of seasons, like any time when the veil is thinner and the spiral just kind of calls us forward. Ash, though, is also known as the liminal tree. It's the wind walker's tree, always moving, always whispering, always opening gates. So unlike the grounded weight of the oak or the watery flow of the willow tree, ash carries an air current quality. She helps us shift consciousness, travel between realms, and really step into the next version of ourselves. She is neither here nor there. She is everywhere in between. And for the witch who is ready to journey inward, outward, or beyond, Ash is going to say, hey, I will hold the path while you change. All right, let's call up the birch tree, our tree of new beginnings, cleansing, and rebirth. Our white flame of new beginnings and sacred renewal tree. Where other trees slumber, birch is the first to rise. In the silence of winter's end, before the snow has fully melted, birch begins to awaken. It's delicate yet determined, like the bright-skinned herald of spring itself. For witches, the birch tree is a sacred ally of new beginnings and cleansing and rebirth. Her bark is white, like bone, like moonlight, like a blank page. And she invites us to write a new chapter in our magic, in our healing, and in our becoming. So power for birch trees, I think, is going to be new beginnings, cleansing, and rebirth. For new beginnings, it's because birch is really the first tree to grow in, disturbed soil. After fire, flood, or even a clear cut, birch returns. This makes her a powerful guide for starting over. Whether you're rebuilding after heartbreak, maybe you're stepping into a new identity, maybe you're casting your first spell. Birch is going to be great for new beginnings. The birch tree also has a lot of cleansing energy with it. It is gentle but potent in our purification rituals. Her energy is clearing without being super harsh, like a fresh breeze or a soft rain. So we can use birch to banish stagnant energy, clear some spiritual clutter, and create space for what is next. But also rebirth. Birch doesn't just end a cycle. She begins the next one. So working with her can help you, shed old habits, old thoughts and patterns. She really reminds us that death and decay are followed by sprouting and bloom. Her presence whispers, hey, you're not alone. You're not done. You are becoming. Birch in the wheel of the year You're going to see this as a tree of Imbolc and spring. So birch is often honored during Imbolc, the Sabbath of fire and fresh starts, a Sabbath ruled by the goddess Bridget. At this threshold between winter and spring, birch really embodies this spark of, hope and renewal. In ancient times, birch twigs were used to sweep hearths, not just to clean, but to ritually remove the energy of the old year. This makes birch pretty magical with our brooms of sorts, both literally and symbolically. Working with birch during the early spring months invites us to clear the cobwebs of the soul, light a new candle, and set some intentions with the pure energy of beginning again. Now, speaking of energy, ways we can work with the beautiful birch tree. Harvest respectfully, for sure. If you're looking to work with the bark, it can be burned to purify a space or even included in spell bags for renewal. Birch twigs can be bundled into a little witch's broom or besom for energetic sweeping, perfect for cleansing your altar, home, or sacred circle. We can also write our intentions or affirmations on a piece of birch bark or, paper, and then bury it beneath a birch tree to root your goals in fresh soil. And certainly during Imbolc or the waxing moon, sit beneath a birch or visualize one and just speak aloud what you are ready to grow. If oak is the king and willow is the priestess, I say birch is the maiden. Innocent, but powerful in her clarity and light. Her energy is playful, pure, and definitely promising. It's a perfect companion for spell work involving, birth, creativity, inspiration, and personal reinvention. She doesn't ask you to know the outcome. She does ask you to take the first step. The birch tree reminds us that there is no shame in starting over again, and that every spiral path that we walk brings us back to the threshold, where the door opens, the light returns, and our magic begins anew. So birch doesn't roar, she whispers, come back to yourself. Cleanse the dust from your spirit. Let it begin again. For the witch who is tired, the witch who is trying, for the witch who is ready to step forward, birch is your companion. All right, the rowan tree is in the top 5 because this is our guardian tree, our gateway to the unseen. In the highlands and hedgerows, in fairy-touched forest and wind-swept moors, the rowan tree stands quietly, watching. With her clusters of blood-red berries and feathery leaves, she is not imposing. But don't be fooled. Rowan is the witch's sentinel, a tree of fierce protection and deep second sight. She has been called the quickening tree, the witch's tree, the fairy thorn. She is guardian, oracle, and spell all in one, a living conduit between the visible and invisible realms. All right, the magic of the rowan tree, I believe, is going to be about protection, psychic power, and divination. Rowan has long been planted near doorways, gateways, and graveyards to ward off malevolent spirits, curses, and ill wishing. Her berries, marked with a tiny 5-pointed star, are considered natural pentacles, powerful symbols of protection. Now in spellwork, rowan is used to form amulets, like warding charms and boundary rituals. Now as a liminal tree, we've got some psychic power too here. Rowan enhances intuition and inner sight. She heightens our sensitivity to energies and supports witches in opening their third eye. Her energy is subtle but sharp, like a sudden knowing that cuts through fog. And rowan tree is a tree of oracles, so we use this tree in our divination. Her wood has been used to craft runes, pendulums, and staffs. Her presence just clarifies. She clears static, filters illusion, making her an excellent ally during tarot work, scrying, and spirit communication. She helps us read between the lines of cards, dreams, and reality. The rowan tree is also kind of known as the wise woman witch tree. Rowan has long been associated with the ancient crone goddess of winter and wisdom in Celtic lore. This tree holds the energy of the wise woman witch, like the healer who walks between worlds, the midwife of soul journeys, the one who sees clearly in the dark. To work with Rowan is to step into your sovereignty and light. She's not here to tell you what to do. She's here to remind you that you already know. Her berries were often strung into charms, carried on belts or in pouches, or even sewn into garments for protection and magical potency. In this way, I think the witch didn't just visit Rowan, like she carried the Rowan tree with her. Now, ways that we can work with her in our own practices, carry dried Rowan berries as protective charms when traveling, especially during ritual or psychic work. We can create a Rowan cross from 2 twigs bound with red thread, an ancient folk charm for protection at thresholds. We can also burn Rowan wood, ethically harvested, of course, right, to cleanse a sacred space or even empower divination tools. We can also place Rowan branches, though, on our altars during spirit work, Samhain, or the dark moon, just to enhance our clarity and our safety. If you ever dream of Rowan or just feel her call, pay attention. She often appears when your spirit is awakening to deeper sight, or maybe when you're ready to walk between the worlds. The Rowan tree is a tree of gateways and guardianship. Rowan doesn't just, keep out danger. She helps you step into your magic, into your power, into your role as a seer, a spellmaker, a sacred soul who honors both shadow and light. She is the tree that you turn to when you're ready to cast a circle of protection around your spirit, but also when you're ready to see beyond the veil and speak of what others are afraid to name. Rowan doesn't roar. She watches. And when you are with her, so do you. So if willow is the emotional healer and birch is the beginner's bark, well, then Rowan is the watchtower, the one who sees clearly, protects fiercely, and holds the line between the realms. And for the witch ready to open their eye inward and outward, for the spellcaster ready to strengthen their boundaries and their sight, well, the Rowan tree stands waiting. Not loud, not looming, but bright-eyed, star-buried, and wise beyond measure. All right, now I am getting ready for my annual summer mountain trip, and for me, I will mostly be working with pines while up in the Sierras. There are a handful of types that are specific to the area I'll be in: white bark pine, limber pine, Jeffrey pine, ponderosa pine, sugar pine, white fir, incense cedar, Sierra juniper, and the Great Basin bristlecone pine. So selfishly, I did pull one more tree to talk about, the pine tree, our tree of cleansing, longevity, and resilience, the evergreen guardian of resilience and renewal. In a forest of cycles and death and dormancy, well, the pine tree remains green, steady, breathing, alive. While others shed their leaves and sleep through winter, the pine tree stands tall, whispering through the snow-covered wind. You, my friend, are stronger than you know. The pine is the ever-present healer, the energetic sweeper of space and spirit. And for us, she is both broom and balm, clearing what no longer serves while reminding us that endurance can be sacred. So I believe the pine tree carries the energy of, cleansing, longevity, and resilience. Pine is one of the most powerful natural purifiers. So for cleansing, burned as incense or even simmering in water, pine just clears away stagnant energy, negativity, illness, or lingering spirits. It cuts through heaviness with sharp, fresh clarity, like a cold wind that just wakes you up and tells you, hey, it's time to release. As an evergreen, the pine tree teaches soul-deep persistence. She's got that longevity. She doesn't rush. She doesn't fade. She knows and shows us how to remain rooted through the seasons of chaos and change. The pine tree reminds us that some magic takes years, even lifetimes, to fully bloom. Also, pine grows in harsh places, so we can work with the energy of resilience. Rocky ridges, thin soils, high elevations. She is built to withstand. When we feel worn down, pine helps us bounce back, bend without breaking, and move forward with grace. Her magic is quiet but super fierce. Ways we can work with the pine tree. Well, we can definitely burn pine needles or resin as incense for cleansing a space, especially after like an illness, maybe some shadow work, or just like some unwanted energy. We can add pine to our ritual baths or, foot soaks or floor washes to spiritually, scrub our homes, our altars, or our own aura. We can also carry a small pine cone or a piece of bark as a charm for personal protection and energetic stamina. We can use pine branches to sweep our space, physically and energetically, before and after spell work, or hang them above your doorway for year-round protection. Now, pine is also associated with Yule and winter solstice, my favorite time of the year. This is the evergreen spirit that carries light through the longest night. Now, the pine tree, it doesn't coddle. She clears. She steps into the clutter of our minds, our hearts, our homes, and says, hey, let's begin again. But she does it with love, like a love that is steady and enduring and sharp enough to cut through confusion. She is a tree of breath, of wind magic, of memory. Her needles hum with the power of air and, a little bit of ancient endurance. And though her magic is often used for cleansing, I do not want to forget that pine doesn't just clear the space, she holds it after. She is the sacred container, the calm after the storm, the guardian of the path when you are unsure how to go on. The pine tree is the tree you call on when you need to let go, but also when you need to stay strong. She will help you clear your altar, your mind, your spirit. She will help you hold your ground. And when the snow comes, when the winds rise, when everything else fades, guess what? The pine tree remains. So light her resin, gather her needles, walk with her in silence. Let her teach you how to breathe again. All right, each of these trees, oak, willow, ash, birch, rowan, and pine, they each carry their own distinct magic, but they all share one sacred gift: the ability to root us deeply into ourselves and the earth, whether offering protection, some emotional healing, spiritual insight, or sacred renewal. These tree spirits don't just teach us about magic. They help us embody it. And one of the most powerful ways to begin a relationship with them is through grounding. When we ground with tree energy, we are not just steadying our bodies. We are syncing our souls with the rhythm of the forest, the heartbeat of the land, and the wisdom of something older and greater than ourselves. So how do we do it? How can we work with our tree allies in simple, powerful grounding practices? Whether you are deep in the woods like I will be soon, or you are standing barefoot in your own backyard. Well, I believe working with trees for grounding isn't about standing still. It's about becoming part of the earth's rhythm. When we connect to tree energy, we are tuning into the quiet pulse beneath the noise, the ancient wisdom rooted in the soil. And I've got a couple ways that we can begin that sacred exchange. First is a tree back meditation. This is going to be about our stillness and support. Find a tree that calls you. Place your back against its trunk. Feel the strength of its bark, the coolness of its shadow, the hum beneath its surface. Breathe deeply and imagine your spine aligning with the trunk. Tall, steady, ancient. Inhale. I rise. Exhale. I root. Stay for a few minutes or as long as it takes to feel yourself return fully to your body. This practice is beautiful before spell work, ritual, or, difficult conversations. We can also do a root visualization. You can do this anywhere, anytime, wherever you are, indoors, outdoors. Stand or sit comfortably. Close your eyes and imagine roots growing from your feet or the seat, curling deep into the earth. Like these roots intertwine with nearby tree roots, anchoring you into the land. And then let your breath guide the descent. With each exhale, release your tension. With each inhale, draw up strength, calm, and clarity from the earth. This is perfect for witches on the go, in need of just a quick reset. We can also do a tree touch ritual. This is going to be working with that physical contact and some intentional breath work. Place your palm flat against a tree's trunk. Let your energy settle into the contact point. And then whisper your name or even your intention. Feel for a pulse. Not literal, right? But energetic. Ask silently, will you ground me? Will you share your steadiness? Then just listen. Let your breath slow down. Let the exchange happen. Leave a little token of thanks, a strand of hair, a small stone, a prayer. We can also do a tree walk, kind of working with that movement and mindfulness energy. Take a slow, deliberate walk through a forest, a grove, or any place where trees live. And with each step, just imagine your feet pressing into the earth like roots. Notice the shape of trunks, the rustle of leaves, the shadows cast. And as you walk, say, I walk in rhythm with the trees. Let this become a moving meditation, a way to ground through motion rather than stillness. We can also do something with firelight and wood, maybe for some more indoor type grounding. Like if you can't get outside, happens. Work with tree spirit through wood itself. Light a pine-scented candle, burn cedar incense, or hold a carved wooden talisman. Place your hands over the flame and, close your eyes. Visualize the forest. Let the energy of the trees surround you, even if you're far away from them. Say aloud or just whisper, though the forest is far, I carry its root. I ground with the spirit of trees. Grounding with trees isn't just a spiritual practice. It really is an act of remembering that we are part of the earth, that stillness can be sacred, and that strength doesn't have to shout. When you feel overwhelmed, scattered, the trees are waiting, not to fix you, but to hold you, to root you, to remind you that you are part of this ancient, breathing, beautiful world. Have you ever heard the saying, tree hugger? Yes, of course you have. We all have. While it's often used playfully to describe environmentalists, its roots are actually deeply courageous and sacred. The phrase tree hugger can be traced back to a real-life act of environmental resistance, all the way back to the 18th century over in India, and to a group of women, I believe it was called Bishnoi, back in 1730. So in a village in India, a group of Bishnoi people, they were followers of a spiritual tradition that values all life. They stood in defiance against these men who came to cut down some of their sacred trees. They needed these trees for building materials. Now, the Bishnoi women, one woman in particular, I believe her name was Amrita Devi, I'm pronouncing that correctly, but she hugged a tree and declared, a chopped head is cheaper than a felled tree. She and over 360 people were slaughtered as they clung to the trees to protect them. This non-violent act of resistance was met with clear violence and death. It is one of the earliest known movements of environmental activism that I believe is recorded in our history. Now, this act later inspired another movement in the 1970s in the Indian Himalayas where villagers, especially women, physically embraced trees to prevent logging. A modern meaning today, tree hugger, it's used to refer to like environmental activists, like people who live in closer alignment with nature maybe, or even some reference to witches, herbalists, and earth lovers who revere the land as sacred. Now, while it's sometimes said mockingly, many of us reclaim this term with pride because hugging a tree isn't just a gesture of affection. It is an act of solidarity, grounding, spiritual kinship. From a witch's point of view, being a tree hugger means, listening to the spirit of the forest, anchoring your magic in the living world, honoring the sacredness of Earth's oldest sentinels, and offering your energy in exchange for wisdom, shelter, and grounding. It's more than activism, it's devotion. And in a world that forgets the sacredness of the earth, hugging a tree is a spell all by itself. Now you may think there's no way to bridge this amazing tree magic into our corporate worlds. How in the world are we going to have our witchy work wishes tie things together? Well, I gotcha. We're going to do this because, we may walk into the office wearing shoes and carrying laptops instead of barefoot and holding crystals, but we are still witches. We are still energy-sensitive beings. And many of us spend our days in spaces that feel sterile, disconnected, and ungrounded. Places where Earth's hum is replaced by fluorescent lights and the rhythm of the seasons is just drowned out by calendar alerts. But we are not powerless in these environments. We carry the forest with us. And trees, our magical trees, have wisdom that belongs just as much in the boardroom as it does in the wild. Why bring tree energy into work? Well, because tree energy grounds us in high pressure environments. It cleanses what clings to us in meetings, emails, and difficult conversations. It reminds us to slow down, to stretch, to root, and to breathe when everything else is demanding speed and constant productivity. Trees don't rush to grow. They don't ask for validation. They stand in their truth, stretch towards the light, and let go of what no longer serves them, season after season. That, my friends, is the kind of leadership that we need in our work lives. Here's how we can bring the sacred tree energy into even the most corporate settings. Ground before you begin. Before starting your workday, whether at your desk, in a Zoom call, staff meeting, whatever it is, take 60 seconds just to ground yourself. Close your eyes, feel your feet on the floor, imagine roots growing from your feet into the earth below. And then say, I am rooted into calm, I grow into clarity. Guess what? You just became the most grounded person in the room. Let's say we can create a tree talisman for our desks. Place a small pine cone. Oh my God, if you could see the amount of pine cones I have in my home, also in my office. I've got them there too. But place a small pine cone, an acorn, a piece of bark, or some twigs near your workspace. This becomes a symbolic ally, a little reminder that you carry ancient strength, even in the most modern spaces. Now, if you're drawn to a specific tree, right, oak for leadership, birch for new beginnings, choose your token accordingly. We can also clear the energy like a pine tree. When the office feels heavy, maybe it's after a tough conversation, or when you're absorbing everyone's stress, call on the pine tree energy. Mist your space with pine-infused water or essential oil spray. Envision the stale energy just lifting like morning fog from a forest. And then whisper something. Clear and cleanse, fresh and free. This is smoke-free smudging, and it works great in office settings. And then think like a tree when you lead. Leadership is not about having all of the answers. It is about presence, about holding space, about being rooted in your values, even when the wind blows hard. Let oak guide you in moments of decision. Let the willow tree help you bend without breaking. Let the rowan tree give you sight beyond surface conversations. Let the birch tree remind you that it's okay to start again. Let the ash tree help you bridge perspectives and meditate. And let the pine tree help you endure what feels overwhelming. Every tree has something to teach you about how to show up for others and for yourself. All right, some witchy affirmations for our office from the trees. If one of these resonates with you, write it on a sticky note. Whisper them before you walk into a meeting. Keep them in your planner. All right, the willow tree. I bend, I do not break. The oak tree. I stand tall in my truth. The pine tree. I grow in harsh places. The rowan tree. I see beyond the surface. The birch tree says, I begin again, fresh and clear. And the ash tree, I hold the center between worlds. You don't need an outdoor altar to be in sacred space. You are the altar. You bring the magic with you. Tree energy doesn't just belong in the woods. It belongs wherever we feel scattered, ungrounded, or out of alignment. That includes our desks, our inboxes, and our team meetings. As witches, we know that magic doesn't live only in the liminal. It really lives in the everyday, if we choose to notice it. So I say bring the force into your workflow. Root it deeply, breathe slowly, and lead wisely. Let the tree be in the room. Trees are magical trees are not just part of the landscape. They are part of our lineage. They are the teachers, our mirrors, our guardians. From the strength of the oak to the emotion of the willow, from the bridging power of the ash to the renewing force of the birch, from the second sight of rowan to the evergreen resilience of pine. We are surrounded by living allies, each with their own story, energy, and sacred gift. All right, we've walked through their wisdom today, not just as symbols, but as spirit partners in our crafts. We've explored how to meet them, how to listen, how to bring their presence into our rituals, our homes, and even into the fluorescent lit corners of the corporate world. We've remembered that every tree holds a spell if we are still enough to hear it. And that even a simple moment, like a hand on bark, a pine needle in your pocket, a breath under a canopy, can be a form of sacred grounding. Tree magic is not just about the forest. It's about rooting where you are, growing at your pace, and trusting your place in the natural web of things. Well, I do have a poem for us today, of course. It's all about tree magic. And I do have the moon update for us this week, the full Capricorn buck moon update. So I will go grab those notes and I will be right back. Okay, let's start with the poem first. And it goes. I found you standing tall and wide, with silent strength you never hide. No voice to speak, no hand to hold, and yet you make my spirit bold. Your roots reach deep, your branches high. You whisper secrets to the sky. 1,000 storms have touched your frame, yet still you stand, still just the same. I leaned against your ancient bark and felt you stir my shadowed heart. You asked for nothing, gave me peace, a grounding breath, a soul's release. Your leaves have danced in wind and light, your shade has softened noon to night. You taught me how to bend, not break, to rest, to rise, to shed, to wake. You bloom in spring with tender grace and hold your ground in every place. Your silence sings a sacred tune, the rhythm of the sun and moon. I've wept beneath your watchful arms and felt the pulse of nature's charms. No sermon, only moss and stone, yet never have I felt alone. So here's my vow, both kind and true. My heart has roots because of you. Wherever I may wander free, I'll carry love, my love for thee. Okay, I just thought of a book. You guys know The Giving Tree? It's a classic children's story written and illustrated by Shel Silverstein. And I think, was it published back in the mid-1960s-ish, somewhere? It's a simple but deeply emotional tale that has sparked love and reflection and debate for generations. It is about the lifelong relationship between a boy and a tree. As a child, the boy visits this tree every day. And in the story, he climbs her branches, he swings from her limbs, he eats her apples, and he rests in her shade. Like this tree loves the boy so deeply, and his presence makes her happy. Now, as the boy grows up, life happens and he visits less. But when he does come home, he always wants something. Like as a teenager, he wants money, so the tree gives him her apples to sell. As a young man, he, of course, wants a house, so the tree gives her branches. And then later in life, he wants a boat to travel, so the tree gives him her trunk. Each time, the tree gives a part of herself to make him happy, even though it means diminishing herself. Now, in the end, the boy is an old man, spoiler alert, tired, and with nothing left to ask for. The tree is now just a stump, but it offers him a place to sit and rest. And this makes her happy once more. Now, many read this book as a symbol of unconditional love, maternal love, right? Willing to give everything for the happiness of the one she loves. But also, the tree's giving is complete, but not without cost. So some see the story as a cautionary tale about imbalance in relationships and taking without giving. I think others interpret it as a metaphor for human exploitation of nature, right? Showing how we take from the earth until there's nothing left. And for some, though, with a more spiritual or mystical view, it is a profound, if heartbreaking, reflection on how tree spirits give, guide, and witness without asking anything in return. While this, story may be sad, it is for me, it also reveals a deep truth. Trees are keepers of time, givers of life, and witnesses to our journey, whether we swing from their branches as children or lean on them in old age. They offer presence, shelter, and perspective, often quietly, often fully, and for witches, we know a tree never really gives nothing. Even as a stump, it holds space. Okay, our moon on the 10th of July is a full moon. This is our buck moon, named for the time of summer when the deer begin to grow new antlers, signaling regeneration, strength, and growth. Key energy with this full moon, that's going to be growth and vitality, personal power, determined progress, physical and emotional renewal, like reclaiming wilderness and manifestation in motion. All right, witchy things we can do under the July full moon. Definitely some goal assessment, right? Check in on your 2025 goals. Are they still aligned? Where can you recommit or pivot? I did an episode on this back in June, but it's a great check-in point. This full moon is good for some wild growth spells. Work with antlers or deer spirit energy to invite strength and steady growth. Outdoor rituals are amazing right now. We are in the middle of summer. So the harshness of the warmth and fullness of summer, drum, dance, light a bonfire, charge water under the moonlight. Frog and spirit, water work. This is my theme, of course, I think for this whole coming year. But this full moon really does pair beautifully with cleansing, emotionally aligned that frog energy. Do a water release ritual or an emotional check-in. Anointing or activation work right now is going to be good too. This is a powerful moon to act, not just dream. So anoint talisman, charge tools, take bold steps forward in your craft and career. How it feels emotionally? July's full moon often brings a sense of urgency, mixed with clarity. We've passed the midpoint of the year. The heat is rising, and so is our desire to see results. But this moon just kind of reminds us that strong growth takes time. Just like the antlers growing velvet soft before they harden into weapons and tools. It asks, are you standing in your strength? It asks, are you allowing yourself to grow in ways that scare you? And are you tending to your goals like a garden, not a checklist? The buck moon calls us back to our wild instinct and sacred potential. It is not a time for shrinking right now. It is a time for standing tall, antlers to the sky, rooted and ready. It is strength becoming, not overnight, but slowly, surely powerfully. Thank you guys so much for joining me today as we wandered through the sacred grove together and explored the magic of trees, their wisdom, their stillness, their wild, quiet strength. Whether you are listening beneath an old oak, beside a sunlit window, or in the midst of your own busy world, I hope you feel a little more rooted today, a little more held, and a little more connected to the forest within you. If this episode spoke to your spirit, I would love for you to share it, leave a review, or send it to a friend who might need a little tree magic of their own. And if you are craving more rituals, spells, grimoire goodness, you can always find extra content over with our Patreon family. I hope everyone has a great full moon, a great buck full moon this week, no matter how you are celebrating it. I'm sending my best wishes for an amazing week and weekend, and I will talk with you next week. Thank you for joining me today at Witchy Work Wishes, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. For more information and additional content, please visit me online at witchyworkwishes.com. If you want to send me a personal note, please email me at info@witchyworkwishes.com. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Witchy Work Wishes.